The US ambassador to China, Gary Locke, is in the news here again for his now famed frugality. On his arrival in China last year, he caused much comment amongst Chinese net users when he paid for an airport coffee with coupons, flew economy class, carried his own backpack and took a cheaper van rather than an embassy limo. Now, in his latest low-maintenance move, it's emerged that Locke opted not to stay at a top-end hotel during the recent Boao Forum in the southern Chinese island province of Hainan. He instead chose to stay in a cheaper hotel. Well, the issue first came to light when a reporter, Audrey Lee, tweeted that Locke had decided to stay at a 4-star hotel when attending the forum because the US government reimbursement didn't cover the rate at the more expensive 5-star luxury hotel where most participants were staying. In fact, according to US diplomatic regulations, an ambassador's hotel allowance in China ranges from around $260 in bigger cities like Beijing or Shanghai to just $70 in some of the very small cities with cheaper average hotel rates. Well, the story began to spread and has since been reported by many Chinese media, as well as being avidly discussed on the internet by Chinese net users who are more used to seeing even junior government officials insisting on the best of the best when travelling on official business. Well, to see just what's being said, let's head over to the newsroom now, where our researcher Julia Liu has been keeping an eye on this issue. Okay, Julia, as we mentioned, there's been a lot said in the press about this incident. Some have suggested that it was leaked to show just how upright the ambassador is and that it was a bit of a PR stunt, really. Do Chinese net users think it's all a bit of show too?
Well, through what I have found on the internet, I have to say most net users don't think so, especially when they compare Mr. Locke's behavior with that of most Chinese officials. This post from 163.com is a typical one, which says, I have to say Mr. Locke's behavior is a slap in the face of these Chinese officials, and it lets us ordinary people know what the public servants really should do. And to be honest, I think if these Chinese officials really want to win respect among the public, they should know it depends on what they have done rather than what they say. And this poster, JJ the Gunban, seems to have a similar feeling, saying, why would he do this? That's because he knows that the money he's spending comes from the public purse and he should be cautious on how to spend it. But in China, I have to say this thought wouldn't enter our officials' heads. And this poster, Yang Fan Qihang, also gives his own opinion, and here's what he has to say. I don't think there's anything worth discussing. Why? Because our words won't result in any changes. I just suggest that all Chinese officials follow a new regulation which would allow them to have the best services anywhere, and that would at least save time spent on fighting corruption. However, there are still some posters who think Mr. Locke's behavior is just making a show, like this post from Sohu.com saying, just look at several earlier reports about him. I have to say he's been playing this tune for a long time. And there's no doubt that he's trying to prove that the US democratic system is really better than what we have. Yes, I don't deny that we should learn many good things from the US, but regarding this showboating, I don't think the media should pay so much attention to it.
Okay, certainly an interesting little story, but really from the reaction here in China, you'd think it was much more than that. It really seems to have set off quite a debate. Why is that, do you think?
Well, in one word, I'd say corruption. The issue that both the public here in China and the government consider one of the country's greatest challenges. As we've seen here before on NetCheck, it's clear that corruption amongst Chinese officials is always one of the public's top concerns. And one thing related to this aspect is the illegal use of public funds for their own benefit or profit. Although the central government has set out several regulations aimed at reducing how much public funds government officials spend, the results don't seem as good as people expected. So when net users heard that Ambassador Locke stayed at this cheaper hotel since he couldn't pay for the more expensive hotel, they just feel it's incredible. This poster from Hexun.com is quite a typical one, saying, to be honest, I just can't imagine this would happen if this was a Chinese official. Just look at the data on public funds spent on our officials' cars. Then you would know how rare it is to see that there is an official who couldn't afford a hotel. And obviously, this poster from caixun.com also agrees, saying, Mr. Locke is an ambassador, and as far as I know, this is not a low-ranking position amongst the government officials. And besides this, he's attending an international conference with participants from many other countries. So I have to say, it's really hard for us to believe such behavior. But some net users feel that there may be another reason why so much attention is being paid to this incident, and that's related to Gary Locke's Chinese-American background. Although I don't know if any other participants also did the same thing, in my opinion, since many Chinese media like to talk up Locke's Chinese-American identity, whenever he does something out of the ordinary, it becomes a big deal and everyone discusses it.
Okay, Julia, now this is something that the government has been promising really for quite some time, to make officials spending much more transparent and also to standardize the allowances. But it seems to be an uphill struggle. Do Chinese net users think maybe there's anything that could be learned from this issue in Hainan?
Yes, of course. First, this poster, Qiao Zhifeng, thinks a more effective supervision system is needed. And this is what he has to say. There's an old saying that a good system can turn a bad man good, while a bad system can also turn a good man bad. In fact, we also have similar regulations which state clearly how much Chinese officials can spend when they travel on official business. But what about the real situation? It only proves that without effective supervision, all the regulations in the world are simply a waste of paper. And what this poster from caixun.com talks about is another form of supervision, saying, of course, good regulations are necessary, but I think public supervision is more important. Why Mr. Locke dares not spend more money on a better hotel is because there are so many US taxpayers watching him. And if he is found to have done anything wrong, his whole political career would be over. However, in today's China, many people just think that if they get involved in anything to do with government or party officials, it could easily end up with them, the ordinary person, getting into trouble. And so they don't want to get involved. And in my opinion, this way of thinking is a big problem, which needs to be changed first. Finally, this poster from 163.com mentions consequences, saying, if Mr. Locke spent more money than he should, then he'll pay a huge price for his behavior. But in China, I don't think so. And I think that's the reason why we already have so many regulations in place, but they still never work.